Hello, and welcome to this month's workshop, Bad Moods and Attitudes. Our children are basically tiny humans with giant feelings. Children have very big emotions that they've not quite figured out how to control them. Not being able to communicate these feelings really causes our children to be frustrated and act out. When we think about feelings, we need to think about our feelings and our emotions as a big ball of energy. Emotions can cause a physical sensation inside our bodies, and this amount of energy can be completely overbearing for our children. Imagine being a child and feeling a sensation for the very first time inside your body. This could actually cause fright and fear inside of our children because they're feeling this tingling sensation that they don't quite understand what it means and what they're feeling. So when children can't articulate these feelings or knowing what these sensations are doing to their bodies, this is what causes them to act out. And since your child can't explain what they're feeling or why they're feeling these sensations, those are what are driving our children to act poorly. During one of these situations, when their body feels very overwhelmed, this is when your child could be pushing their sibling, when they fall apart when you ask them to do their schoolwork, or when you are making an important phone call and they just want to scream and interrupt you. This could be when they're dealing with something that they might not be able to articulate. So how do we help our children move forward from that? So our first step as parents is to calm ourselves first. In an escalated situation with our children, the best thing we can do to calm ourselves and go in with a clear mind. That could mean we need to walk away. It could mean we just need to take a deep breath, go on a walk, or practice mindfulness. Anything to refocus our minds so that we're calm when we walk back into the room to handle our children and their situations. So once we're calm, what do we do now? First step, set limits. Limits need to be calm, clear, and firm with our children. So what does that look like? Let's start with homework. Maybe your child is supposed to have his homework done tonight, and he's not ready to do it. So your homework's due tomorrow, so it does need to get done. However, I see you're overwhelmed right now. Let's take a break. You have 10 minutes to go outside and run around and play and get your energy out. When the timer is up, we'll begin again on your homework. So that is just a small, simple scenario of what we could do when our children are very overwhelmed at the moment of homework time. What we can do is create a boundary, which means homework does need to be done, but is 10 minutes of a break going to help us regain our focus and get ready to start our homework? Maybe, right? We want our children to be able to know that things do need to get done. That's our limit, but we understand that they're overwhelmed. We understand that it's not something that needs to be done right this second. So we allow them to take that 10 minutes, go on a run, get their energy out, and get ready to try again. That's where we're able to do that flexibility, but still being able to use our limits. What about screen time, right? So screen time is what a lot of people deal with as parents. I know I do specifically. So let's say it's time for their video games to be turned off, but they really don't want to. So this is kind of a way that we can speak to them and allow it to set our limits, but also being able to create a boundary and set a deal. For instance, it's time to turn off the screen now. You have shown it's too hard for you to do it, so I'll do it for you. We have an agreement, remember, about how to make it easier to turn off the screen when it's time. Your choice. Either you can run around the house 3 times or do 5 push-ups. So this seems pretty vague, right? This sounds like a parent that may have had a deal with their child, telling them that, okay, you have 10 minutes to play left. And then once they got to that 10 minutes, the person decided, or the child decided, he didn't want to turn it off. So that's when we as parents have to really set a limit, right? We tried an agreement, we tried to make this work, but the child still wasn't having it. And that's when us as parents need to be like, all right, we've given you that opportunity, but our limit is still there. Our boundary is still there. And that means that we should do it for you. You've shown you can't, so we're going to go and turn it off. If that's bothering you to the point that it's overwhelming your little body, then maybe you should go run around for a little bit or do 5 push-ups. But those are your choices. I can see you're overwhelmed. I can see it's too much to turn the screen off. So either run around the house or do 5 push-ups. That's setting your limit, letting them know that no matter what's going on with their body, we're still going to continue with our boundary. So it might not matter in the moment what your child says. So when we consider how much this limit matters in the time and place. So let's talk about if our child is giving us attitude or throwing a fit, and during that moment, they tell you that they hate you. As much as that hurts our feelings, as much as that's painful to hear, we also know that they don't mean it, right? That's also something that you can talk about later on. But during that moment in time, we just want them to know that we're an open place for them to talk to and get their emotions out. And then once they're able to feel comfortable enough to talk to us about what is on their mind and what's causing them to act out, then once everything is calm and we've handled the situation, we can go back to them and let them know, hey, it really hurt mommy when you told me that you hurt my, it really upset mom when you told her that you hated her. It really hurt our feelings. And next time we'd rather you not say that, because we can't take back what we say, right? We can apologize, but still the feelings are hurt. Allowing their emotions to get the best of them, that's normal, right? We sometimes say things we don't mean, and sometimes they are just unhappy and we need to figure out why. So most limits, like turning off screens or keeping kids from interrupting your phone calls, are best involved with systematic intervention instead of crisis management. So what does that mean? That means that we have conversations, we create plans to avoid that from happening in the first place. Crisis management means that we have to deal with it right then and there because it's out of hand. The point of the matter is that we want to make sure that it doesn't get to crisis, that it's being prevented first. That means we're setting our limits, we're setting boundaries first, so that way we don't cross that. So how do we do that? We're going to start by connecting and empathizing before we correct or redirect. So that means that we want to have a connection. We want them to know that we're there to talk to, we're there to listen when there's something going on. And then empathizing before we correct or redirect. That is big. That means that I can see that there's something wrong with you. I can see that there's something going on in your mind, something hurting your feelings. So I'm going to understand that before I get upset and before we redirect. So this is an example. So when you're being interrupted during a phone call, maybe we could say, so I felt like you really needed me right then, huh? It's hard when I'm on the phone so much. I wonder if you want to make sure I'm still here to help when you need me. That's a way to let your child know that they interrupted you and you saw that, but you also understood that maybe they really needed you in that moment. Maybe they felt like they were being ignored. Maybe they felt like they were alone, right? Children do not understand that parents do things that really don't involve them or really don't mean anything beyond the fact that they're being on the phone, right? Children need reassurance. They need to understand that we're there. But this is kind of empathizing and letting them know that even though you made a mistake, we understand why that mistake may have been made, but then this is what we're going to do instead. So let's address the needs behind the behavior. That's the second step, right? So if you want the behavior to stop, you'll need to understand where the source of their anger, their behavior is coming from. So an example, maybe your child is being bullied at school, right? And when your child is being bullied at school, they might come home with an attitude and start misbehaving. We might just see them as, oh my goodness, my children has an attitude and they're upset and they've had, they're not being very kind to me, but we're not looking back on maybe they had a hard time at school. So children have a hard time explaining what's going on, right? And what they're feeling, and they have little control of their emotions. So if they're being bullied at school and they're dealing with somebody 24/7 picking on them, and they want to get home and it's their safe place, that's when they're going to let their emotions out. That's when they're going to show anger. That's when they're going to show sadness. That's when they're going to shut down. And they may reach out to you in a negative way because you are their safe place. They can't talk to anybody else. They can't let their anger out or give attitude to the person they're being bullied by, right? So when they get home, it might negatively impact you, but it's for a reason. So we need to take a step back and really ask, what is going on? What is causing our child to do this and act like this? So the first way we can do that is by actively listening. We as parents have a really easy time of listening to our children, but not actually listening, right? We could be on our phones, we could be watching TV and just nodding and agreeing. I'm guilty of that. My children will tell you that. But when something is going on in their lives, I make sure that I put my phone down. I make sure that I ask questions. I let them know what I'm hearing, that they're telling me. I'm creating a safe environment. It's open communication. I want them to know that they can talk to me when something's going on, knowing that I'm actually listening, knowing that I'm actually involved, asking questions that pertain to the situation so that they know that I'm there. Just letting them know that you are going to provide your undivided attention and you are going to listen wholeheartedly, especially when something's going on in their lives. Because if we don't show that every time something's really bothering them, they're not going to want to come to us next time. So first step is active listening. Second one is communicating. We're focusing on ownership of the feelings, making sure we're not trying to manipulate or control the other. We're just listening and giving our communication, open communication, allowing our child to know that no one can make you feel or think or need something that you don't want to. That's all on your child, right? Same with our feelings and emotions. When we talk about you statements, that's when we're giving them choices. So you have a choice. You can clean your room now or you can clean your room later, right? So we're not trying to demand our child. We're trying to let them know that they do have choices. But that's when we're setting our limits still, right? The choice in the end is still what we want to get done. However, it's how they want to do it, right? So your room needs to be cleaned. It needs to be cleaned by 6 p.m. So if you choose not to clean your room by 6 and you've had all day to do it, then a consequence is going to happen, right? But that's not saying I need it cleaned right this second. And if you don't, this is getting taken away. That means, okay, you have a choice. So either you can clean right now or you can clean later, but the consequence is if you don't clean by this time tonight, then a consequence gets taken away, such as video games, such as, activities that they really enjoy, or maybe even their special toy. That part's unique, but the boundary has to be set. The limit has to be set. Otherwise, your child's going to feel like they can do whatever they want, whenever they want. Make sure that we're giving praise. So when we see that something gets done, like their room before 6 p.m., instead of focusing on what the consequence could have been, we could have been like, that was awesome. That was great time management. I hope you're proud of yourself by keeping up the deadline. Making sure we're asking questions, reflective feelings. This is all just basic conversations and communication in any scenario. So make sure that when we're reflecting feelings and we're saying, okay, I see that you're upset. Is there anything we could talk about? Is there anything that we could do, right? This is all just how we can communicate any scenario. So 1 is making sure we're giving choices. 2, make sure we're giving praise. 3, gaining clarification. And that one means that if they appear to be sad, we're not just going to say, I see you're sad, right? We're going to allow them to clarify and allow them to tell us what's going on and how they're feeling, because we don't know their emotion, right? 4, we're going to ask questions. 5, reflective feelings. So understanding, that means that we have to be aware, and so does your child. So awareness starts with, we're aware of the way our body responds to a feeling, such as when we feel sad, maybe we're feeling it in our stomach, maybe we're feeling it in our chest. Being able to name the feeling. So when they're telling us what they're feeling and why they're feeling it, we're able to help them understand that, okay, that feeling that you're feeling is sadness and we're feeling it in our stomach because of, right? The third one is recognition of the situation or similar situations that generate specific feelings. So the more we understand our child, the more we talk to our child, we're going to notice a pattern. We're going to notice, okay, they always feel this in their stomach when they're feeling sad or when they're feeling lonely. And they're going to understand that more too when we help them find a word for their feelings. And that's a big part. We have to help them understand what they're feeling and why they're feeling it, so that when it happens next time, they understand the feeling that they're feeling. So acceptance is next. We have to allow our children to understand and know that what they're feeling is okay. It doesn't matter what they're feeling, whether they're feeling angry, whether they're feeling sad, lonely, hurt, angry, that is okay. We are not in control of our children's emotions. We have to allow them to feel it. Just like we're not in control of our own emotions, right? We can't decide whether we're angry or happy or sad. It just happens, and that's okay. But what needs to happen is communication, right? We want them to have verbal communication, even non-verbal communication. It's okay. It happens, and we want them to be able to communicate it. But there is rules, right? So maybe they're feeling angry, maybe they're feeling upset. But the rule is that they have to respect themselves. They can't be hurting themselves. They have to respect others, not hurting others, respect their environment. That means don't destroy property or animals or nature. So if they're angry and they're hitting things, right, we need to set up these rules. And rules have to come before this emotion. So that means that we have to talk to our children before they feel this emotion and before the boundaries happen. That way they know what the rules and what's to be expected. Even during the time, like when my daughter used to be really upset, she would start hitting me when I would start putting her in her room. And when she would do that, I would send her in her room and I would allow the behavior to happen. But then when we got in the room, I would set her down and let her know, okay, it's okay to feel this feeling. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be upset. But what's not okay is hurting mom. It's not okay to say mean things. We need to respect our body. We need to respect mom. So that's us setting limits and setting boundaries, and fixing the behavior while it's happening, but also creating rules for when it happens again later. So daily activities that we can do to stay connected with our children, to avoid these big emotions. Our children need us 24/7. So we could play with our children with lots of laughter, big movements to have their gross motor skills being able to be moved and evolved, making sure we're keeping routines, so your children are aware of what's happening next. That helps your children feel safe and okay in their environment, which helps ease their emotions. We need to make sure we're welcoming all emotions. Remember what we talked about, whether they're sad, whether they're angry, whether they're upset, their emotions are okay. Filling your children's cup. So we know what our children need, and keeping that cup full is what's going to help them maintain a proper daily emotion, right? We want them to feel full. We're practicing mindfulness as a family. That means that we're centering our mind, we're calming ourselves, we're breathing, maybe we're doing yoga, anything that keeps us peaceful. Make sure we're turning off the news. The news has a lot of negative things in it, and we really don't want to keep that in our house. And I'm not saying parents can't watch the news. You're more than welcome to watch the news, but that's something that you'd want to do on your alone time and away from the children, because they really don't need to know what's going on in this world. And lastly, during summer, some things that you could do for family fun is shooting family videos together, dancing and acting goofy. You could write and act out a play, read a book, write a story, listen to music, dance, create a scavenger hunt, play a board game. There's all sorts of things that you could do with your family during summer that would keep them active and keep them moving. And really, that's what our children need. They need us involved. And all of this is to say that the more we're involved, the more we're in tune with our children, the more that they're in tune with themselves, helps their body regulate, it helps with co-regulation, it helps with self-regulation, and that's ultimately what we're trying to do here. And that's our monthly workshop. If you have any more questions or anything or need to call, please feel free to call the office, and I will see you soon.